Welcome to the Forensic Anthropology student outline. In this unit, we discuss various aspects of using bones to determine pieces of forensic evidence. We start with a historical development here. In the 1800s, scientists began studying skulls, and this laid the framework for today's knowledge. In 1932, the FBI opened the first crime lab, and the Smithsonian Institution became its working partner in the identification of human remains. Soldiers killed in World War II were identified using anthropologic techniques. Now let's take a look at some bone biology. Bones originate from cells called osteoblasts. They migrate to the center of cartilage production and deposit minerals. Throughout life, bones are being broken down, deposited, and replaced. Osteoclasts, the second type of bone cell, among other tasks, remove cellular wastes. How bones connect, and I would star this bullet because you are held accountable to knowing these three tissues that hold bones together. We have A, cartilage, which wraps the ends of bones and keeps them from scraping against one another. B, ligaments, bands that connect two or more bones together. And C, tendons, which connect muscle to bone. You must know the difference between ligaments and tendons, that ligaments connect bones together, and that tendons connect muscle and bones together. Until about 30 years of age, bones increase in size, and deterioration after 30 can be slowed with exercise. All right, now let's get into some things that bones can tell us. An osteobiography tells much about a person through the study of the skeleton. For example, the bones of a right-handed person would be slightly larger than the bones of their left arm. This is because they used their right arm a lot more, and therefore the bones become larger in size due to the increased activity. Forensic scientists realize that bones contain a record of the physical life. Analyzing bones can reveal clues to such things as gender, age, height, and health. All right, let's talk about one of the ways to determine gender. And in this one, we're going to compare two skulls. Is the female's skull smoother than the male's? And the answer to that is yes, it is. Which frontal bone is lower and sloping? Let's put all the questions first here. Are the male's eye orbits more circular? And which jaw is more square with an angle that is closer to 90 degrees? Where he said the female's skull is smoother than the male's. The frontal bone is lower and sloping in which one? This is in the male skull. Are the male's eye orbits more circular? The answer is no. They're more square. And which jaw is more square with an angle that is closer to 90 degrees? And that is the male jaw. So if we go up and compare these two pictures that we have, we see when we compare this jaw and this jaw on the left and the right, we see that the one on the right has an angle that is closer to 90 degrees. And we see the frontal bone is lower and more sloped on this one on the right than it is on the left. This clearly indicates to us that the skull on the right is male, while the skull on the left is female. Another way to determine gender is by looking at the pelvis. One of the easiest methods of determining the gender of a skeleton is by examining the pelvis. The surface of a woman's pelvis can be scarred, and this would be, of course, due to childbirth. The subpubic angle of the female pelvis is greater than 90 degrees, and the male's is less. So which of the pelvis above is the male and which is the female? Clearly, the pelvis on the left is the female, while the one on the right is the male pelvis, okay? Because of that subpubic angle that they're showing you in red there. All right, ways to determine age. By about age 30, the suture at the back of the skull will have closed. By about age 32, the suture running across the top of the skull back to front will have closed. And by about age 50, the suture running side to side over the top of the skull near the front will have closed. Okay? These sutures each have unique names, which we will be learning in class more when we do the lab. But clearly, this first bullet goes with the first skull diagram. So this is the one referred to here. The second bullet goes with the middle. And the third bullet goes with this suture that's being referred to here. During life, many of the 450 bones a person has at birth grow together, finally forming 206 bones. As the cartilage between them is replaced, an epiphysis line is visible. When a cartilage is fully replaced, the line is no longer visible. This information can be used to approximate a skeleton's age. Height. Just as age can be estimated by looking at the bones of the arm and leg, so also can an estimate of height be made. Often the approximate height of a person can be calculated from one of the long bones, even if just one of those is found. The long bones would be the upper arm, called the humerus, and the upper leg, called the femur. So you have 4 of them, and as long as one of those is found, the approximate height of the person can be determined. Gender and race will also need to be taken into consideration in making the estimate. And this is where the charts that you looked at earlier in the book come in handy. Facial reconstruction. A face is formed by the skull with the muscles and tissues on top of the skull. Theoretically, nonetheless, a face can be rebuilt from just skeletal remains. Facial markers are positioned at critical locations on a skull, and clay is contoured to follow the height of the markers. Today, computer programs perform a similar function, and these computer programs also can age missing persons and criminals. DNA evidence can also be determined from bones. Bone has little nuclear DNA. However, it does contain mitochondrial DNA. This has DNA that is inherited only from the mother. I would star that bullet right there. Long after nuclear DNA has been lost through tissue degeneration, mitochondrial DNA can be obtained from bone. Results can be compared with living relatives on the mother's side of the family to identify skeletal remains. That's pretty neat. Skeletal remains can also be analyzed for trauma. Forensic anthropologists often determine if damage to bones occurred before or after death. Definite distinctions exist between patterns on bones made by weapons and the patterns created by the environment after death. Sharp force trauma, blunt force trauma, gunshot wounds, and knife wounds all have distinctive patterns. In summary, Bones are alive and carry on all life functions. Condition of bones can tell investigators about a person's health and nutrition during life. Male and female skeletons differ in many ways. The age of a person at death can be estimated by analysis of a number of bones. A person's height can be estimated by the length of long bones, and facial reconstruction is possible to some extent. Mitochondrial DNA can be extracted to help identify skeletal remains, and skeletal trauma analysis examines bones for evidence of damage. Much more to come throughout the rest of our unit, and we have a really neat lab that goes with this unit as well.